Hello, my English isn't the best, but I have a story for you guys. This happened around 2 years ago. I was driving to work, a 5-hour drive, and it was already dark. About 3 hours into the drive, I started to get tired. I stopped at a gas station, bought myself some coffee and snacks, and kept going. But snacks and coffee can only keep you awake for so long, and before long I started to feel tired again. This part of the road was nothing but thick, dark pine forest. No other cars, no lights, just insects smashing into my windshield now and then, and a completely empty road. I was extremely tired, and at one point I nearly drove off the road from almost falling asleep at the wheel. I thought, I have to sleep now. I can't wait for a gas station. I needed to stop as soon as I saw a spot where I could park my car. Anything would do. When I'm tired, I fall asleep really fast. If I'm exhausted enough, I can fall asleep in the middle of a sentence, even while I'm talking. So it was urgent that I find a place to pull over. It felt like an hour, but probably only 5 minutes passed when I finally spotted a small pocket on the side of the road. It was like one of those quick-stop spots, maybe for switching drivers or bathroom breaks, not even a proper rest area. I pulled over there, rolled my windows down a bit to listen for any strange sounds. Total silence. I rolled them back up. Nothing bad is going to happen, I thought. I hadn't seen a car in like 30 minutes. The road was completely dead. If anyone came to check on me, I figured it would probably be the police making sure I was okay. I left my keys in the ignition and locked the doors, just to be safe. I adjusted my seat to make it more comfortable for sleeping, took off my shoes, and placed them on the passenger seat. It felt so nice to finally close my eyes. I instantly fell asleep. I don't know why, but something woke me up. I couldn't see clearly. Some kind of bright light was hitting my eyes. At first I thought it was a flashlight, but then I realized it was the high beams from another car behind me, blinding me through the rearview mirror. Then I looked in my left side mirror and saw a man walking up beside my car. Maybe he needs help. Should I let him know I'm inside? He was right next to my left rear door. Should I get out and ask what he's doing? I didn't need to. The guy suddenly started yanking on the door handle, trying to open my back door. I almost shit my pants. He was actually trying to force his way into my car. My seat was still laid back from sleeping, pushed all the way back. I couldn't even reach the pedals properly, so I couldn't just drive away. I slammed my hand on the car horn, and the loud sound shattered the silence. The guy jumped in surprise. That gave me about 2 seconds to adjust my seat. It was still completely out of position, but I was able to pull myself up toward the steering wheel. My back had no support, but I managed to start the car and hit the gas. My tires screeched as I sped off, a cloud of smoke behind me. It was hard driving like that, no support, barely able to reach the pedals. But I didn't care. As I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw the man still standing there, staring at me. Then, 2 more guys appeared next to him. From the silhouette in their headlights, I could see that one of them was holding something, maybe a wrench or a crowbar. I floored it. I drove way over the speed limit, my whole body trembling with adrenaline and fear. I kept going like that for at least 30 minutes before finally stopping at a gas station. I fixed my seat and put my shoes back on. When I checked the time, I realized I'd only been asleep for about 10 minutes. Well, at least I didn't need to sleep again before I got to my destination, which, thankfully, was surrounded by heavy-duty fencing and had an alarm system. The next day, I told my boss what happened. He said that area actually has problems with what we call in Sweden road pirates. Criminals who force you to stop and rob you of everything, including your car. Maybe it was just 3 nice guys trying to check if I was okay. But then again, why didn't they just knock on the driver's window? And what was that thing in his hand? A flashlight that big? For context, I grew up my entire childhood without a father. When I turned 15, I got really into hunting and just enjoyed guns in general. My uncle is an avid hunter, gun builder, and ammunition reloader. He loves to hunt. This common interest brought us very close. He became a father figure to me and taught me a lot, lessons that made me the man I am today. Now, to the story. My uncle's father lives in Montana, which allowed us to get resident pricing on big game hunting tags. Once a year, we'd head up to his property and hunt for a week. Usually, everything went smoothly, and if we were lucky, we'd get the shot we were looking for. Unfortunately, not this year. Just like every year, we headed up to his father's property in northern Montana. That night, we went out to set up some hunting cameras to confirm that deer were in the area and that it was a good place to hunt. It must have been around 1 a.m. We were driving down a 2-lane dirt road headed into the woods. We were always the only people on that road, especially at that hour. But this time, we saw headlights approaching from behind us. We thought nothing of it. We figured they must have been doing the same thing we were. After tailing us for a while, the headlights disappeared, which was odd since there were no turns on that road. A few seconds later, we saw the truck driving on the shoulder to our right, with its lights off. The shoulder was a small hill with brush and a fence close to the edge. Definitely not a place anyone should be driving. The truck sped up, got back on the road, turned its lights back on, and sped off into the darkness. This set off some red flags, but we figured they were just impatient and wanted to get there before us. No big deal, or so we thought. We continued for a few more miles until we saw taillights stopped in the middle of the road. It was the same truck that had passed us earlier. They had set up traffic cones to completely block the road, and there was another truck parked on the shoulder. We assumed they must have broken down, so we stopped. Earlier that year, I had read an article about people in other countries who made roadblocks to rob and kill people for their vehicles and belongings. I laughed and started to tell my uncle about it, right as 2 men from each truck jumped out and started approaching us. My uncle always carried 2 handguns in shoulder holsters when we were out doing this kind of stuff. That decision saved our lives. 2 of the men stayed at the tailgate of the truck on the road, while the other 2 walked up to my uncle's window. By then, he had his right hand in his jacket, gripping his gun. The men were overly friendly and explained that the truck on the shoulder had broken down and they were helping out. They asked if my uncle knew anything about cars and if he could come take a look. When my uncle refused, their attitudes changed instantly. Both men pulled pistols. One of them started to move around the front of the truck toward my side. My uncle grabbed the gun pointed at him. Luckily, the man had forgotten to chamber a round. My uncle pulled his own gun and shot the man in the shoulder, then slammed on the gas, driving on the left shoulder past all of them. I looked back and saw the other 3 men gather around the one my uncle had shot. We drove in silence for what felt like forever. When we finally got back to his dad's house, my uncle told me to go to bed. He then called the police to report what had happened. 2 officers came out to take his statement and told him that there had been multiple reports of roadblocks being set up throughout northern Montana. They were able to catch all 4 men that night when they took the injured one to the hospital. About 6 years ago, I was staying at my parents' cabin with a friend. One night, we decided to head out to a casino located on a nearby reserve, about 40 minutes away. The entire stretch of highway between the cabin and the casino is surrounded by thick forest and has no streetlights, meaning it gets incredibly dark. We got to the casino, played some poker, tried a few table games, and grabbed dinner with our winnings. It was a pretty successful night for both of us. We ended up leaving around 1 a.m., a bit later than I would have liked, given how dark the road back was. We were about 20 minutes into the drive without seeing another vehicle when I noticed two green orbs just off the highway near a hill. I realized it was a deer and slammed on the brakes. A few deer crossed the road, and once they were gone, I started driving again. The car was slowly climbing the hill since we had just come from a stop. As soon as we reached the top, my friend suddenly shouted, "Holy shit!" Right in front of us, no more than 30 feet away, was a young woman walking down the middle of our lane, directly toward us. I slammed on the brakes again and stopped about 10 feet from her. Luckily, because we had slowed earlier and were climbing a hill, we weren't going very fast. But what unsettled me wasn't just how close I came to hitting her. It was what she looked like. She had long black hair, was barefoot, and wore a white nightgown. She walked slowly, with a blank, emotionless expression on her face. It honestly felt like something out of a horror movie. We waited to see if she would come to the window and say something or ask for help. She made it to the front of the car, walked around the driver's side, and without stopping, slowly dragged her hand across the side of the vehicle as she continued walking. At that point, we were both thoroughly creeped out. I asked my friend what we should do. The answer was obvious to him: leave. But for some reason, I couldn't bring myself to just drive off. Something about the situation didn't feel right. I looked in the rearview mirror and saw her still walking. Having nearly hit her, I felt some kind of responsibility, or maybe just curiosity, to check if she was okay. I told my friend I was going to say something. He really didn't want me to get involved and tried to talk me out of it. But I put on a brave face and told him I'd be right back. I turned on the hazard lights and stepped out of the car, leaving the door open to light up the area a bit. I walked toward the back of the vehicle. My interior lights weren't much help, but the blinkers gave me a glimpse of her outline, still slowly moving downhill, every other second. I half yelled, "Are you all right?" She finally stopped walking, but she didn't turn around. She just stood there, still facing away from me. No answer. I heard the passenger door open. My friend had stepped out too. And then, out of nowhere, she screamed. We both ran back into the car, and I floored it. The rest of the drive back to the cabin was quiet, other than my friend giving me a hard time for stopping in the first place. I haven't seen anything like that since, and honestly, I hope I never do again. That was, without a doubt, the creepiest moment of my life.